are recording as well. Good notice. And so now that we're all on the same page about who we are and why we're here, I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge where we are. And for many of us, including myself, who are zooming in today from what is known by settlers as Toronto, it's the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And being just less than a week removed from our first ever National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I hope that everyone had an opportunity recently to reflect on the history and legacy of residential schools, to honor the lost children and survivors of those schools, their families and communities, and to consider the specific actions and roles that each of us can play in our personal and professional lives towards reconciliation. And so with that, a couple of very quick updates from the Atmospheric Fund's Carbon and Co-Benefits quantification team, who some of you will be hearing from later on. First, we've made good progress in securing access to odometer level data from the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, and we expect to receive that data shortly and have already begun strategizing and planning some of the logistics on how we will process that data. And once we've done so, we intend to share our findings with our municipal partners and other stakeholders across the region. And if you have any questions about that or would like to learn more about it in advance, encourage you to reach out to Juan and Miriam on our team at TAF. Second, an update on TAF's most highly anticipated release of the year, the annual carbon emissions inventory for the GTHA. We're expecting to release the inventory, which will include 2019 and 2020 emissions data in mid to late November. So it's coming up pretty quick. And we will be reaching out to many of you over the next few weeks to share and compare some of our findings and identify any potential discrepancies and to discuss at a high level some of those key findings before we release the report publicly. Now, as for today's meeting, as mentioned in our email invitation, we're trying a different format for today. So instead of a single presentation or presentations, we'll all be divided into separate breakout rooms to focus in on one of 4 specific topics related to emissions quantification. And by breaking off into these groups, our goal is to provide a bit more time and space for everyone to dive a little more deeply into topics relevant to their own work and to share knowledge and best practices on how to attack these big questions and complex challenges related to climate action and quantification. So we're really hoping that everyone has a chance today to identify opportunities and areas for collaboration among our colleagues who are all part of this network. So in just a moment, you'll see a menu pop up on your screen with the 4 breakout rooms identified. So everyone has to self-select. So we know that you registered and identified the group that you want to join in advance of this. So we just ask that you please select the room that you had identified when you registered for this event. If you don't remember which room you selected or didn't select a room, please just pick the one that appeals most to you and is most relevant to your own work. Please note, as we are with this big session, we'll be recording each breakout session only for the purposes of capturing and then sharing key takeaways, lessons, and discussion topics with other CDN members who aren't here, and to hopefully help enable others to follow up based on some of those breakout groups. So please notify your room facilitator if you have any concerns about that. And so the sort of agenda from here out is that each room will have a brief presentation delivered by one of our expert presenters, followed by Q&A, and then 20-ish minutes of discussion. And we've asked those presenters to identify some discussion topics for the small groups to engage in. The discussion will be facilitated by facilitators in each room. We will have note takers to again document some of those findings. And then after that, we'll ask each group to present back to this big group will be automatically brought all together and provide a 2 to 3 minute summary of key takeaways and topics discussed in their room. So that's the game plan. And so as just a quick refresher, which you should see pop up on your screen very shortly, room 1, the title is Adventures with Fugitive Methane, with a presentation by Tapzone Juan Sotes. Room 2, Connecting the Dots Between Data and Decision Makers, with TAP's Miriam Shekarazaford. Room 3, a presentation by Derek May of Pollution Probe on some of their work related to remote work and quantifying the emissions impacts and other benefits of remote work. And then room 4, going beyond the toolbox to implement green development standards, which will feature a presentation by Chris Frankowski at RWDI. And so those are our 4 rooms. And with that, Yvonne, if you're able to pull up the invite or the menu for folks to select, we can head off into our breakouts.